Isha Kumar clutched her portfolio case tighter as the glass elevator ascended to the 47th floor of the Vogue Tower. Her reflection in the mirrored walls betrayed her nervousness. A simple cream silk blouse tucked into a modest pencil skirt, her long black hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing like the avant-garde fashionistas who populated Lumiere Fashion House. The elevator doors opened to reveal a panoramic view of Manhattan and a reception area that screamed wealth and exclusivity. Marble floors reflected the crystal chandeliers overhead. Fashion magazines featuring Vivienne Rothschild, creative director and fashion mogul extraordinaire, were artfully displayed on minimalist tables. "I have an appointment with Ms. Rothschild," Isha told the receptionist, who barely glanced up from her sleek computer. "Name?" The woman's voice was flat, her eyes scanning Isha's attire with barely concealed disdain. "Isha Kumar, I'm here about the senior designer position." The receptionist's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "Wait here." Isha found a seat and opened her portfolio, checking her designs one last time. After 15 years of working her way up from sample seamstress to mid-level designer at smaller houses, this interview at Lumiere could change everything. 20 minutes passed, then 40. The receptionist avoided eye contact. Finally, glass doors swung open and a cluster of impossibly stylish people emerged, led by Vivienne Rothschild herself. Tall, silver-haired, wrapped in a structured crimson jacket that probably cost more than Isha's monthly rent. "Ms. Rothschild," Isha stood, extending her hand. "I'm Isha Kumar, thank you for seeing me today." Vivienne's cool eyes assessed Isha from head to toe. "Kumar, oh yes, the interview." She glanced at her entourage, a slight smirk playing on her lips. "Come in, we're all quite curious about your perspective." The conference room was intimidating, a long glass table surrounded by fashion industry elites. Isha recognized Julian Marks, Vivienne's protégé and current golden boy, whose meteoric rise had been chronicled in every fashion magazine. He lounged in his chair, scrolling through his phone while Isha set up her portfolio. "So, Ms. Kumar," Vivienne began, "you think you have what it takes to design for Lumiere?" Isha straightened her shoulders. "Yes, I've admired your work for years, and I believe my experience in sustainable textiles and my background in—" "Where did you study again?" Julian interrupted, not looking up from his phone. "I have a degree from FIT and I completed." Vivienne cut in. "FIT, not Central St. Martin's, not Parsons." She exchanged glances with a woman to her right. "How accessible." Laughter rippled around the table. Isha felt heat rise to her cheeks but pressed on, opening her portfolio. "If I could show you my latest collection." "Are those cotton blends?" Julian finally looked up, his expression one of theatrical horror. "How very department store." More laughter, louder this time. "They're actually organic cotton with innovative recycled fiber integration," Isha explained, her voice growing smaller. "The manufacturing process reduces water waste by 60% while maintaining luxury quality." "Darling," Vivienne sighed dramatically, "Lumiere isn't in the business of saving the planet, we're in the business of setting trends." She closed Isha's portfolio without looking at it. "You seem like a very earnest person, but this isn't a charity, we don't take on projects." The room erupted in barely concealed snickers. Isha stood frozen, humiliation washing over her in waves. "Perhaps," Julian added, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "there's a lovely little sustainable basics brand somewhere that would appreciate your modest talents." It was at that precise moment that the conference room door opened. 6 years earlier, Isha had been one of the most promising young designers at Atticus Apparel, a mid-sized fashion house known for its innovative approach to sustainable fashion. Her mentor, Elinor Whitman, had taken Isha under her wing after discovering her sketches during a factory tour in Mumbai. "You have vision," Elinor had told her. "You see beyond trends to what fashion could be." Under Elinor's guidance, Isha flourished. Her designs, blending traditional Indian textile techniques with modern silhouettes, caught the eye of fashion editors and ethical fashion advocates alike. At 32, she was on the verge of launching her own capsule collection under the Atticus label. Then came the call from Milan. "Vivienne Rothschild wants to meet with you," Elinor told her, excitement making her voice tremble. "This could be huge, Isha. Lumiere could take your career into the stratosphere." The meeting had gone well, or so Isha thought. Vivienne had been charming, complimenting Asha's exotic approach and quaint dedication to sustainability. "Send me your portfolio," Vivienne had purred. "I see potential there, raw but potential." Asha had spent weeks perfecting her submission. Alina had helped, offering guidance late into the night. "This is your moment," she'd said. "You're ready." 3 months later, Lumiere's fall-winter collection debuted in Paris. As models stalked down the runway, Asha sat in the audience, invited by Alina as a special guest. Her blood ran cold as the third look appeared, a sari-inspired evening gown with intricate hand-beading in a pattern Asha had designed. Then came a jacket with the asymmetrical closure she'd developed, a dress with the distinctive color-blocking technique she'd perfected. Her designs, all of them, slightly modified but unmistakably hers. "Elena," she whispered, turning to her mentor, but Alina wouldn't meet her gaze. Later in the hotel room, Alina finally confessed. "Vivienne wanted your ideas, not you. I gave her your portfolio." "You knew," Asha's voice had cracked. "You helped her steal my work." "It's not stealing, it's fashion," Alina had replied coolly. "Besides, I protected you. Vivienne would have destroyed you if you'd accused her. This way, I got you a generous severance package." The betrayal cut deeper than the theft. Within a week, Asha was out at Atticus, her reputation suddenly tarnished by whispers of difficult to work with and unprofessional behavior. Alina had chosen sides, the side with power, money, and Vivienne Rothschild. Jahan, her husband of 2 years, had held her through nights of tears. "You'll rebuild," he promised. "Your talent is real. No one can take that from you." Slowly, painfully, she did rebuild. Small freelance projects became steady clients. A modest online shop featuring her sustainable designs gained a loyal following. She found her voice again, designing clothes that embodied her values while paying the bills. Then, unexpectedly, 6 years after the betrayal, an email from Lumiere's HR department. They were looking for a senior designer with experience in sustainable textiles. Was she interested in interviewing? "It's a trap," Jahan had warned. "Why would they suddenly want you now?" "Maybe they don't know the connection," Asha had reasoned. "HR wouldn't necessarily know what happened, and maybe this is my chance to finally prove myself." Jahan had looked skeptical but supportive. "Just be careful and call me right after. I'll be at my office downtown if you need me." Now sitting in Lumiere's conference room, facing the mockery of Vivienne and her sycophants, Asha realized her husband had been right. This had never been a legitimate interview. This was entertainment, humiliating the woman whose ideas they had stolen years ago. "Perhaps we should see the rest of your little collection," Vivienne suggested, her voice honey-sweet with malice, "since you've come all this way." Asha's hands trembled as she pulled out her designs. Every instinct screamed at her to gather her things and flee, but something kept her rooted to the spot, pride, perhaps, or the faint hope that her work might speak for itself despite the hostility in the room. Julian snatched a sketch from her portfolio. "Oh my God, is this supposed to be evening wear? It looks like something my grandmother would wear to bingo night." A woman with severe bangs and an architectural black dress leaned forward. "Is that a sustainably sourced sequin? How very conscientious." She pronounced the word like it was obscene. "I particularly love this," Vivienne said, holding up Asha's most innovative design, a formal jumpsuit with detachable panels that could transform the garment from day to evening wear. "It's almost identical to something we showed 2 seasons ago. Weren't you inspired by our work, Ms. Kumar?" Asha's throat tightened. That design was completely original. She developed the prototype herself in her tiny home studio. "I assure you, all my work is original. I don't." "Caroline, pull up our 2023 winter collection, the transformable pieces," Vivienne instructed her assistant. The large screen on the wall illuminated with images from Lumiere's previous collection. There, strutting down the runway, was a model wearing a jumpsuit with a similar concept, but the execution, the details, the very soul of the design was entirely different. "The resemblance is uncanny," Vivienne continued, her voice dripping with accusation. "One might even suggest impropriety." The implication hung in the air. She was accusing Asha of plagiarism, the very crime they had committed against her years ago. "That's absurd," Asha managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "My design approach is completely different. The construction, the sustainability elements." "Security logs show you attended our show that season," Julian interjected, scrolling through his tablet. "Interesting coincidence." Asha felt dizzy. She had attended that show, her first time back at Fashion Week after years of avoiding the main events. She'd gone with a small sustainable fashion publication that had commissioned an article from her. I was there as press, she explained, but I would never. You know, interrupted a man Asha recognized as the fashion director for a major magazine. I remember hearing about you years ago. Weren't you fired from Atticus for some ethical concerns? The trap was springing closed. Somehow they had orchestrated this entire meeting not just to humiliate her, but to destroy what remained of her reputation. That's not what happened, Asha said, her voice now barely above a whisper. Oh, Vivienne's eyebrow arched dramatically. Do tell us what really happened, Ms. Kumar, we're all ears. Asha looked around the table at the smirking faces, the barely concealed amusement. She thought of Aliner's betrayal, of the years of rebuilding her confidence stitch by stitch. She thought of Jahan's faith in her when she had lost faith in herself. What happened, she said slowly, finding her voice, is that I submitted a portfolio to you 6 years ago, designs that mysteriously appeared in your collection 3 months later. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. That's a very serious accusation, Vivienne said, all pretense of amusement gone from her voice. One that could have serious consequences for someone in your precarious position. Is it an accusation if it's the truth? Asha countered, surprising herself with her boldness. Vivienne's eyes narrowed. Caroline, please escort Ms. Kumar out. I think we've seen enough of her creativity for one day. The assistant moved toward Asha, but Julian held up his hand. Wait, this is getting interesting. He turned to Asha. You're claiming Vivienne Rothschild, one of the most celebrated designers of her generation, stole designs from you, a nobody from a second-tier design school who couldn't even hold a job at Atticus Apparel. That's rich. Laughter erupted around the table again, but this time Asha didn't flinch. I have proof, she said quietly. The laughter stopped. The conference room door swung open. All heads turned as a tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit entered the room. Jahan Kumar's presence commanded attention instantly, his confident stride, the subtle power of his bearing, the quiet authority in his eyes as they found Asha's. I apologize for interrupting, he said, his voice resonant and controlled. I'm Jahan Kumar, Asha's husband. Vivienne recovered first. Mr. Kumar, we're in the middle of an interview. I'm afraid you'll have to. Actually, Jahan smiled politely, placing his briefcase on the table. I believe you're in the middle of something else entirely. He looked at Asha. Are you all right? She nodded, suddenly feeling stronger. I was just telling them I have proof of what happened 6 years ago. Jahan's smile didn't waver as he opened his briefcase. Then perhaps this is perfect timing. Julian scoffed. Who exactly are you, besides the husband of a failed designer making ridiculous accusations? Jahan Kumar, he repeated calmly. Senior partner at Blackstone Rhodes & Kumar. We specialize in intellectual property law and corporate malfeasance. He removed a folder from his briefcase. I'm also the person who spent the last 6 years building a case against Lumiere Fashion House, Ms. Rothschild personally, and several of her accomplices for intellectual property theft, corporate espionage, and pattern and practice of predatory business tactics. The smug expressions around the table began to falter. This is absurd, Vivienne said, but her voice had lost its imperious tone. Caroline, call security. Before you do that, Jahan continued, you should know that I've already spoken with 3 members of your board this morning. They're very interested in avoiding the publicity of a major lawsuit, especially given the evidence we've compiled. He opened the folder and placed several documents on the table. These are dated submissions of my wife's original designs, including digital timestamps and blockchain verification. These, he placed another stack beside them, are side-by-side comparisons showing the unmistakable similarities between her submissions and your fall-winter collection that year. Vivienne's face had gone pale. Anyone can create backdated designs and claim. And this, Jahan continued, sliding a final document forward, is a sworn affidavit from Alina Whitman, detailing how she was pressured to provide you with Asha's complete portfolio under threat of being blacklisted from the industry. The room fell completely silent. Alina would never, Vivienne began. Alina has terminal cancer, Asha said quietly. She contacted me 3 months ago to make amends before she dies. She has nothing to lose by telling the truth now. Jahan pulled out his tablet and tapped the screen. We also have the original email correspondence between you and a leaner, recovered from Atticus Apparel's servers during an unrelated case our firm handled last year. Would you like me to read some highlights aloud, or perhaps display them on this convenient screen? He gestured to the large monitor still showing the Lumiere collection. That won't be necessary, a new voice said from the doorway. An older man in an expensive suit stood there, flanked by two others in equally fine attire. Asha recognized him immediately. Harrison Wells, CEO of the luxury conglomerate that owned Lumiere. Mr. Wells, Vivienne stood quickly. This is just a misunderstanding. Is it? Wells asked, his voice tired. Because from what Mr. Kumar shared with me this morning, it sounds like a pattern of behavior that has exposed this company to significant legal liability. He turned to Jahan. You have more, I assume? Jahan nodded. 7 other designers with similar experiences over the past decade. 3 of them are prepared to testify. 2 have documented evidence similar to my wife's. Wells sighed heavily. I saw the preliminary evidence in my office an hour ago. That's why I'm here. He looked at Vivienne. The board is convening an emergency session at 3 o'clock. Your presence is required. His gaze swept the room. This meeting is over. The next hour unfolded like a carefully orchestrated ballet of corporate damage control and legal maneuvering. The conference room had transformed into Command Central, with Harrison Wells and 2 board members on one end, Jahan and his colleague who had joined him on the other, and a visibly shaken Vivienne Rothschild flanked by her suddenly silent supporters in between. Asha sat beside her husband as he methodically presented the evidence they had gathered over 6 painstaking years. This is the original submission packet, Jahan explained, displaying scan pages on the large screen. Note the distinctive draping technique and the particular beating pattern. And here, he swiped to another image, is the Lumiere runway piece 3 months later. Side by side, the theft was undeniable. The architectural elements, the innovative closure system, the precise way the fabric gathered at the shoulder, all uniquely Asha's, all replicated with only minor modifications. We've had 3 independent fashion experts analyze these designs, Jahan continued. All 3 concluded that the statistical probability of independent creation is virtually 0. Wells rubbed his temples. And the other designers you mentioned? Jahan's colleague, a sharp-eyed woman named Maya Chen, stepped forward. Similar patterns in each case. Young, promising designers, often from non-traditional backgrounds or focused on sustainable or ethical fashion. Initial interest from Lumiere, requests for comprehensive portfolios, followed by remarkably similar designs appearing in subsequent Lumiere collections. She displayed a timeline on the screen, showing a clear pattern over 8 years. The most damning evidence comes from internal communications, Maya continued. She pulled up an email chain. This exchange between Ms. Rothschild and her design team specifically references the Kumar technique when discussing how to construct a particular garment. Julian visibly paled. He had been copied on that email. And there's this, Maya said, pulling up another document. A sworn statement from Thomas Riordan, former head of production at Lumiere, confirming that teams were regularly instructed to reverse engineer techniques from submitted portfolios of designers who were ultimately not hired. Vivienne finally found her voice. This is all circumstantial. Fashion is iterative by nature. Similar ideas emerge simultaneously. Is that why you scrubbed all digital records of Asha's portfolio from your servers last year? Jahan interrupted. Our digital forensics team found evidence of a systematic purge of specific files from your design database in May of last year. Interestingly, it coincided exactly with when my firm began representing another designer with similar claims. Vivienne's lips pressed into a thin line. Wells turned to one of the board members beside him. Patricia, what's our exposure here? The stern-faced woman in a navy suit responded without hesitation. If even half of this evidence holds up in court, we're looking at millions in damages, not to mention the reputational harm. She looked directly at Vivienne. The board was never informed of these methods. Because they don't exist, Vivienne snapped. This is a witch hunt based on the delusions of failed designers looking for someone to blame for their mediocrity. Shah, who had been silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. I have one more piece of evidence. She opened her own portfolio and removed a sealed envelope. This contains the original USB drive I submitted to you 6 years ago. I kept it in a safe deposit box all this time. It has the original files with their metadata intact, showing when they were created and last modified. All dates precede your collection by months. She slid the envelope across the table. You never returned it to me. Eleanor secretly removed it from your office and sent it back to me a year after I was fired. Vivienne stared at the envelope as if it might explode. Harrison Wells stood abruptly. I've seen enough. Vivienne, you're suspended pending the board's review. Julian, you too. He turned to the others around the table. This meeting is confidential. Anyone who discusses it outside this room will face immediate termination and potential legal consequences. He looked at Jahan. Mr. Kumar, I'd like to discuss settlement options. Jahan nodded. We're open to discussions, provided they include full vindication of my wife's reputation, financial compensation for her stolen work, and structural changes to prevent this from happening to other designers. In public acknowledgement, Asha added firmly, I want my name restored. Wells considered this, then nodded. Let's continue this conversation with our legal teams. He turned to Asha. Ms. Kumar, for what it's worth, I apologize for what you experienced today and 6 years ago. It appears Lumiere has fallen far short of the ethical standards I expect. As the room began to clear, Julian paused beside Asha. For what it's worth, your designs were brilliant, he said quietly. That's why she took them. She's been creatively bankrupt for years. Before Asha could respond, he was gone, following Vivienne out the door. The fashion world exploded 3 weeks later when Lumiere Fashion House issued an unprecedented statement. Following an internal investigation, Lumiere acknowledges improper use of submitted design concepts from independent designer Asha Kumar in our 2019 Fall-Winter collection. We have reached a settlement with Ms. Kumar that includes financial compensation, design credit, and a comprehensive overhaul of our design submission and attribution processes. Creative Director Vivienne Rothschild has resigned, effective immediately. The statement was clinical, carefully worded by corporate lawyers, but its impact was seismic. Fashion blogs, industry publications, and social media channels erupted with speculation, analysis, and, inevitably, more accusations. In her penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Vivienne Rothschild watched her empire crumble in real time. Her phone had not stopped buzzing with notifications, canceled appointments, withdrawn invitations, former friends suddenly unavailable. They've frozen the accounts, her assistant informed her, voice trembling. The board says all expenditures require approval during the transition. Julian sat across from her, scrolling through his own phone. It's getting worse. 3 more designers have come forward with similar claims. He looked up, his youthful face suddenly aged by stress. Vogue has canceled your profile, and the Met Gala committee is reconsidering your chair position. Vivienne hurled her crystal tumbler against the wall, sending shards of glass and amber whiskey across her immaculate white carpet. They can't do this to me. I built Lumiere from nothing. I created this world. You stole from people who trusted you, Julian said quietly. We stole from them. She turned on him, eyes flashing. Don't get self-righteous now. You were happy enough to take credit for designs that weren't yours. He didn't deny it. I'm 34 with no real portfolio of my own. Everything I've created belongs to someone else. He stood, gathering his coat. I've agreed to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for immunity. You should consider doing the same. Traitor, she hissed. No, he replied calmly, just finally being honest. He walked to the door but paused before leaving. For what it's worth, I am sorry. We could have just hired them, collaborated with them. We didn't have to destroy them. After he left, Vivienne sat alone in her stunning apartment filled with priceless art and custom furniture, all symbols of a success built on lies and theft. Her phone buzzed again, another cancellation, another withdrawn invitation, another former friend distancing themselves from her toxic reputation. Across town, in a significantly more modest but warm apartment in Brooklyn, Asha and Jahan sat with their legal team, finalizing details of the settlement. The licensing agreement for your designs used in their collections will generate residual income, Maya explained, and the board has agreed to a full-page acknowledgement in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Women's Wear Daily. Jahan squeezed Asha's hand, and the other designers. Lumiere has established a fund to address similar claims, Maya confirmed. They're desperate to contain the damage. Asha looked at the draft of the acknowledgement that would soon appear in major fashion publications worldwide. It featured her name, her original sketches, and a clear statement attributing the designs to her creative vision. "It doesn't feel real," she whispered. "It's just the beginning," Jahan promised. "This isn't just about vindication, it's about what comes next." On her coffee table sat a business proposal they had been working on for years, plans for a design house built on ethical principles, transparent sourcing, and genuine collaboration with emerging designers. What had once seemed an impossible dream now felt tantalizingly within reach. As news of Vivienne's downfall spread through the fashion world, an unexpected email arrived in Asha's inbox. It was from Harrison Wells. "Ms. Kumar, in light of recent events, Lumiere is undergoing a complete restructuring. The board and I are committed to transforming our business practices and rebuilding our reputation based on integrity and innovation. We would like to discuss the possibility of you joining us as creative director. Your vision for sustainable, ethical fashion aligns with the direction we now wish to pursue. Please consider this opportunity to transform Lumiere from within." Asha read the email aloud to Jahan, her voice filled with disbelief. "What are you thinking?" he asked, studying her expression. She closed the laptop slowly. "I'm thinking that taking Vivienne's job would mean working within a system that almost destroyed me." She looked at their business proposal. "I don't want to reform their world, I want to build something new." 1 year later, Asha stood in the light-filled studio of Kumar Collective, watching as a diverse team of designers collaborated on their upcoming collection. The space hummed with creative energy, sketches pinned to inspiration boards, sustainable fabric samples draped over mannequins, young designers debating construction techniques with seasoned pattern makers. What had begun as a modest venture funded by her settlement with Lumiere had quickly grown into one of the most talked-about new fashion houses in the industry. Their first collection, featuring Asha's transformable, sustainability-focused designs, had received critical acclaim and, more importantly, strong sales from consumers increasingly concerned about ethical fashion. "The photo shoot location is confirmed," said May, her production manager. "The abandoned textile factory works perfectly with our theme of industry transformation." Asha nodded approval, and the models. "All confirmed, diverse in every way: size, age, ethnicity, gender expression, exactly as you specified." Kumar Collective had made waves by refusing to adhere to traditional fashion industry practices. They used models of all sizes and backgrounds. They published detailed information about their supply chain and manufacturing processes. They collaborated openly with young designers, offering mentorship programs that included explicit protections for intellectual property. Most controversially, they had implemented a design attribution system, where even junior contributors received named credit for their contributions to collections, a practice virtually unheard of in an industry built on the myth of the singular creative genius. Asha called Zara her assistant. "The journalist from Fashion Forward is here for your interview." Asha smoothed her narrow collar jacket, her own design, made from reclaimed silk blended with innovative plant-based fibers, and made her way to the conference room. The journalist, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, stood as Asha entered. "Ms. Kumar, thank you for making time. I know you're preparing for your show next week." "Please call me Asha." The interview began with standard questions about the upcoming collection, but soon turned to the story that had made Asha famous beyond fashion circles. "Your case against Lumiere changed the industry," the journalist noted. "Since then, 3 major houses have been forced to acknowledge design theft and implement attribution policies. How does it feel to have catalyzed such change?" Asha considered her answer carefully. "When I was fighting for acknowledgement of my work, it was personal. I needed the truth recognized. But as more designers came forward with similar stories, I realized it was systemic. The fashion industry has romanticized the myth of the lone genius designer for too long, when in reality, fashion has always been collaborative. Yet you turned down the opportunity to become creative director at Lumiere. Many would have seen that as the ultimate vindication." Asha smiled. Replacing Vivienne Rothschild would have meant perpetuating the same system that enabled her behavior. I wanted to build something fundamentally different. "Different how?" "Fashion isn't just about the clothes we create, it's about how we create them, who makes them, under what conditions, and who gets credit. Kumar Collective operates on a model of transparent collaboration. We're proving that you can be commercially successful while being ethically sound." The journalist gestured around the studio, and it seems to be working. Your first collection sold out and you've secured major retail partnerships for this second season. Consumers are ready for change, Asha replied. They want beautiful clothes, but increasingly they also want to know the story behind those clothes. Is it sustainable? Was it made ethically? Are the creators fairly compensated and acknowledged? As the interview concluded, Jahan arrived at the studio with lunch for Asha. The journalist couldn't help but comment on their partnership. Your husband played quite the dramatic role in your vindication. Has he remained involved in Kumar Collective? Asha exchanged a warm glance with Jahan. He's our legal counsel and business strategist, but more importantly, he's the person who never stopped believing in me, even when I had stopped believing in myself. After the journalist left, Jahan and Asha took their lunch to the rooftop garden they had built above the studio, a green oasis in the urban landscape where they grew some of the plants used for their natural dyes. The investor meeting went well, Jahan told her. They're excited about the expansion plan. They believe your mentor-to-employment pipeline for designers from underrepresented backgrounds could transform the industry. Asha looked out over the city. Did you ever imagine when we were building that case against Vivienne that we'd end up here? Jahan took her hand. I always knew you were capable of something extraordinary. I just didn't know what form it would take. She squeezed his hand, remembering the day he had walked into that Lumiere conference room and changed everything. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what you really want to build. The venue for Fashion Week was packed beyond capacity. Kumar Collective's sophomore show had become the most anticipated event of the season, with industry insiders, celebrities, and media jostling for seats. Backstage, Asha moved calmly through the controlled chaos, making final adjustments to garments, reassuring nervous models, and consulting with her team of designers. Each piece in the collection embodied the philosophy that had become Kumar Collective's signature: innovative sustainability met with practical beauty, tradition blended with forward-thinking technology. 5 minutes to places, called the show director. Asha gathered her team in a circle. Unlike traditional fashion houses where assistants and junior designers remained invisible, at Kumar Collective, everyone involved in the creation process was acknowledged. Today, after the final walk, all 23 contributors would take the runway alongside Asha. Whatever happens out there, she told them, remember that we've already succeeded. We created this collection with integrity. We honored each other's contributions. We built something together that none of us could have built alone. As the lights dimmed and the music began, Asha slipped to the front row where Jahan waited. He squeezed her hand as the first model appeared on the runway. The collection unfolded like a visual manifesto. A suit made from recycled ocean plastic transformed with a few strategic zips into an evening ensemble. A series of garments featuring traditional handcrafted embellishments from artisan collectives around the world. Innovative textiles derived from agricultural waste turned into luxury garments with impeccable tailoring. Each piece told a story of possibility, that fashion could be both beautiful and ethical, innovative and sustainable, profitable and fair. As the final model completed her walk, the audience erupted in applause. Asha rose and made her way backstage where her team waited, faces flushed with excitement and pride. Ready? She asked them. Together, they walked onto the runway, designers of diverse ages, backgrounds, and experiences, each one essential to the collection's creation. The applause grew louder as Asha introduced each team member by name, something unheard of in traditional fashion shows. When the applause finally quieted, Asha stepped forward to the microphone that had been placed center stage. Thank you for celebrating our work today, she began. Fashion has always been about transformation, transforming fabric into garments, transforming ideas into reality, transforming the way we see ourselves and each other. She paused, looking out at the audience filled with the very people who had once excluded her. But the greatest transformation happens when we challenge the systems that no longer serve us. When we dare to imagine a fashion industry that values transparency over secrecy, collaboration over exploitation, and integrity over image. In the audience, she spotted familiar faces: Harrison Wells, several Lumiere board members, even Julian Marks, who had left the industry briefly before returning as a teacher at Parsons, where he now emphasized ethical design practices. 6 years ago, I was told I didn't belong in this room, Asha continued. that my vision for sustainable, ethical fashion was naive and unmarketable, that my background and my values made me an outsider in an industry built on exclusivity and image. Asha gestured to her team standing proudly behind her. Today, we prove that was wrong, not just through this collection but through our entire approach to creating it. She looked directly at the fashion editors whose publications had once ignored her. Kumar Collective isn't just a brand. It's a blueprint for what fashion can become when we value every person in the creation process, when we honor the planet that provides our materials, and when we recognize that true innovation comes from inclusivity, not exclusivity. The room had fallen completely silent, hanging on her every word. Fashion has the power to transform more than our appearance. It can transform lives, communities, and industries, but only if we're brave enough to imagine something better than what came before. As Asha concluded her speech, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Fashion critics who had once dismissed her were now capturing her words for their publications. Designers who had once ignored her were now applauding her vision. Retailers who had once overlooked her were now eager to carry her collection. At the after-party held in Kumar Collective's studio rather than some exclusive club, Asha found herself approached by a familiar face, Eleanor Whitman, frail but present, supported by a nurse. "I didn't think you'd come," Asha said quietly. Eleanor's eyes were clear despite her illness. "I had to see it, what you built after everything." She looked around at the studio, at the celebration in full swing. "It's extraordinary, Asha, better than anything Lumiere ever created." "You shouldn't have traveled in your condition," Asha said gently. "I needed to say it in person." Eleanor took Asha's hand in her thin one. "I'm so sorry for what I did and so proud of what you've become despite it." Asha felt the last remnants of bitterness dissolve. "Thank you for coming forward with the truth. That took courage." "Less courage than what you've done." Eleanor nodded toward the collection displayed around the studio. "You didn't just reclaim your career, you're reinventing the whole industry." Across the room, Asha caught Jahan's eye. He raised his glass in a silent toast, his expression filled with pride and love. Beside him stood Maya and several of the other designers who had come forward after Asha, each now finding their voices and rebuilding their careers. A young design student approached Asha shyly. "Ms. Kumar, I just wanted to say thank you. Your story, it gave me courage to continue when my professor told me my sustainable design concepts weren't commercial enough. You showed me there's another way forward." Asha smiled, recognizing her younger self in the student's earnest face. "What's your name?" "Zoe." "Well, Zoe, Kumar Collective has an internship program starting this summer. The application deadline is next month." She handed the stunned student her card. "Send me your portfolio. Real innovation deserves recognition." As the celebration continued around her, Asha found a quiet moment with Jahan on the rooftop garden. "So," he said, "was it worth it, all those years of fighting?" Asha looked at the city's skyline, then back at the studio filled with people celebrating not just beautiful clothes, but a new vision for creating them. "It wasn't just about winning a legal battle," she replied. "It was about creating something better than what had hurt me." She leaned against his shoulder. "Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying what hurt you, it's building something they said you couldn't build." Jahan smiled. "The simple woman they tried to humiliate has transformed an industry." "Not alone," Asha corrected, thinking of everyone who had contributed to this moment. The designers who shared their stories, the artisans who created with their hands, the models who gave the clothes life, and the man beside her who had walked into that conference room when she needed him most. "No," Jahan agreed, "not alone. That's the whole point, isn't it?" Below them, the celebration continued, not just of a successful fashion collection, but of a fundamental shift in what success in fashion could mean. A transformation born from humiliation, built on truth, and sustained by the simple but revolutionary idea that fashion at its best is a collaborative act of creation, where every contributor deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. In that moment, Asha knew that her greatest design wasn't any garment in her collection. It was the new path she had forged, not just for herself, but for everyone who would follow.